This video is brought to you by Squarespace. All right, it's Friday. Welcome back. I want to start off with a little show and tell. So on Saturday, we did a little field trip over to the Modern, which is one of our beautiful art museums here in Fort Worth. Went over there because they were doing the Atsukimi Moon Festival, which is this wonderful thing where the museum is open past dark and you get to go outside and they have this kind of moat-ish pond that goes around the museum, and we were launching these little luminarios into the water. It was really cool. I shot all this on the Leica M11. Now, what is interesting about this is after that sun went down, it was getting really dark, and I had an f2 maximum aperture lens on this camera, and so I was really pushing this. I mean, it was really low light, and all these shots are like at 12,500 ISO, and I gotta say, it handled it impressively well, and I think it has a lot to do with the processor that they put in that camera. Now, one observation about this whole experience, and I say this as a member of the Modern, and this is just constructive criticism, but I think that if you're going to do a moon festival, it might be more effective to have it on a night where you can actually see the moon. That stuff is really kind of predictable and easy to look up online. I'm just saying, again, just a little piece of constructive criticism. Other than that, it was fun, got some cool shots. Anyway, today we are going to get to some of your cool shots because we're going to look at some mail. Without further ado, let's get to it. You know, technically it is a full moon right now. I'm just saying it should be on a night when the moon is actually above the horizon so you can see it. But I digress. First up, we have two little zines, and these are really awesome. This comes to us from Anna Starr. We have two issues here. This is Plastic Perspective issues 1 and 2. And Anna sends a note which reads, "Hi Ted, my name is Anna and I'm a hobby Holga photographer. I found out about your channel when my followers recommended I send you my zine. When I searched through your channel and saw my favorite camera ever made and a photo of a Holga, I knew that I was in the right place. I am the creator of a Holga zine called Plastic Perspective. I started this project last fall on a whim. One of my main motivations was never having my own Holga photos accepted into any zine that I applied for, so I just made my own. It is my pleasure to share it with you. Plastic Perspective is a celebration of all the intriguing and inspiring things you can do with a plastic Holga camera. Some of the photographers that I feature are avid Holga shooters. Others brought theirs out of deep storage just to try it out again for the zine. Between the two issues, so far I've featured 85 photographers from 11 countries, 17 US states using 11 different types of Holgas. Plastic Perspective is split into two parts. You'll see my own intro and photography in the first half and featured photographers in the second half. Please be sure to look at the photographer list on the last page. I hope that you see something special in these photos that reminds you of why Holgas are one of your favorite cameras. Maybe you'll even be inspired to make another Holga video soon. If you want to know more about the project, myself, or my photography, feel free to reach out. Cheers, Anna Starr. I will put her details in the show description below this video. Anna, these books are absolutely fabulous. They are very inspiring. And I'm just talk just a second, because a couple of points I want to make. So this is important because I think this is something everyone should learn from. So Anna was sending her photos trying to get accepted into other zines. It wasn't happening, so what'd she do? She made her own. Like, that is the most amazing thing about the world we live in today, is that we have the opportunities. In fact, I think one of the saddest things that I see are there are so many opportunities out there that most people are just too close to the forest to see the trees, so to speak, and so they just don't pursue them. And this is a great idea, and you've done a wonderful job on these. Second of all, I want to talk a little bit about the Holga. So yes, the Holga is still my favorite camera ever made. In fact, this is so inspiring. I'll tell you what, before the end of the year, I will do another Holga video. I know that this is a weird time of the year, and this is when all the new products are coming out, and so we tend to have a little bit heavy emphasis on things like iPhones and Hasselblads and Leicas and so on and so forth. So for those of you who don't know, a Holga is just this plastic camera that takes medium format film. It's one of my favorite cameras because it's not supposed to be any good. It's all made of plastic. It's just got this single one-element lens in it that is also plastic. Every Holga has a different look to it, but it's about embracing those imperfections. You can see that in all of these photos, and it's also very cumbersome and weird and unnatural to shoot on, so it is one of the best learning cameras, I think, for anybody out there. Anyway, Anna, excellent work. I will put a link in the show description once again, so you guys go check her out. Thanks for sending these. All right, next up is this beautiful book. I really love this. This comes to us from Dion Gupta, I believe is how you say your name. It's called On Acetate Experiments in Film, and Dion writes, Dear Ted, I am sending you a copy of On Acetate, which is my first, and so far my only zine that I made with my photography. I don't really expect this zine to be special enough that it's worthy of taking up time on one of your videos. Okay, right, don't say that, don't say, oh, we have this rule here at The Art of Photography. You never apologize for a photograph. You sent it, believe in it. Anyway, I'm gonna go on. However, I am sending this to you because of what it means to me, and that your videos played a significant part during this phase of my life. The story of this scene is that I moved to the city of Heidelberg in Germany in late 2018 and went to the supermarket for the first time and found that they were selling film. I immediately picked some up, went home, and started looking for cameras that I could use with my existing digital camera lenses. I had never shot with film before except for when I was 5 or 6 years old, and I played with my father's old Yashico Electro 35 on family holidays, so this was something that I knew nothing about that I had to teach myself from scratch. Okay, I'm going to paraphrase just a little bit of this next part because it is something that is very personal. But long story short, Bowd, like most of us, has dealt with some personal issues, and photography was what helped him get through them. I love this, and I'm really flattered that he mentions in here that my YouTube channel was a big part of this and the whole learning process and this whole journey through what seemingly is a messy part of life into something that you come through the other side a better person for. Bowd, this is a gorgeous book, and I kind of was half joking when I said don't apologize at the beginning. I mean, don't apologize ever. You have nothing to apologize for. This is fantastic. I'm really flattered that you're telling me that I was a part of that and that the videos that I make were helping educate you. That's exactly why I make these. It's like, you know, any hobby in a creative sense, whether you like pick up watercolor painting or whether you enjoy photography or maybe you like sculpture or building furniture, whatever that is, it's just so important to the completion, I believe, of having a full life. It's just something that, it's in my opinion, it's something that is absolutely essential. It's mandatory. It's what keeps us together. It's what keeps us sane. In fact, if I may be as bold as to give you an unsolicited critique here, there are 3 images in here that I want to point out, and I think that these are just absolutely stunning. The first 2 are these train images. This is the first one. It's just peering through a little opening here, and there's another one that I think relates to it, which is also a train image that's looking between 2 seats. All you see is a gentleman's arm as he's probably writing. You see a lot of depth. There's layers going on. And I think maybe to a slightly lesser extent, but the same vibe, this image of these bicycles here. This is something that I feel like of all the work that you've done in here, I mean, it's all strong. Those 3 images are particularly strong, and what they remind me of is something that Ralph Gibson has talked to me about before. And it's essentially when you end up with a photograph that on the surface is a photograph of nothing, but it has enough of that depth and those layers and that intrigue into it where it gets your mind working. You start thinking about it. And I would definitely take that as a starting point for your next move in photography and really try to capitalize on that. Anyway, the whole book is gorgeous. I really appreciate you being open enough to tell me the story in here, and I will link up to his work below. I don't know if you left me Instagram or not on here, but I will figure it out, hopefully, and many thanks for sending this. Appreciate it. Unsolicited critique. It's something I don't normally do on here for a number of reasons, and I've talked about it before. It's hard when people send me work and I'm not sitting down with them face-to-face to ask them what their goals are and all that stuff. I've talked about that before, and I actually have some things that I want to say unsolicited about these next couple books that have come in because I think they're things that we can all learn from, and believe me, they're positive. But I've got 2 more I want to show you. But real quick, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor today, who are the always awesome folks over at Squarespace. Listen, you need a website, and we all know how much work that is to build and maintain, but it doesn't have to be. Squarespace is by far the easiest way to build your online presence. It's also the best way to grow a business that works for you without having to write a single line of code. Do you just need a simple portfolio or a blog to showcase your work? Well, Squarespace is perfect. Featuring a drag and drop interface. It's intuitive, it allows you to build galleries quickly and update your site with ease. Are you running a business? Well, Squarespace gives you additional tools for things like appointment scheduling, private member areas, social media tools, and even advanced email marketing. Do you sell products or services? Well, Squarespace has you covered with complete tools to power your store, from merchandising to checkout, so that you can sell, ship, and build your customer base. You can even sell classes or manage appointments through your website. And with Squarespace extensions, you can easily sync with third parties to manage, optimize, and enhance your website. From social media integration to SEO, Squarespace gives you all the tools you need to grow a business that works for you. So head over to Squarespace and sign up for the free trial. Start with one of their award-winning templates and see what you can create and just how good you're going to look. When you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/AOP and I can save you an additional 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Just use offer code AOP on checkout. So give it a try and see if Squarespace is right for you. And I want to give a special shout out and thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Okay, next up we have a set of zines. There are 2 editions of this that come to us from Lee Griffith. We have 35 Days of War, a visual diary, as well as 35 More Days of War, a visual diary. And I'm going to read you a little of Lee's note that he included, which reads, "Dear Mr. Forbes, I have been an avid fan of your channel for a number of years. It is certainly one of the best and most informative photography channels out there. A while ago, you posted a YouTube video about Skylum and their request for drones to support Ukraine. It was very informative and very good. Since the outbreak of the war in Ukraine, I have been posting a photo a day and thought I would match it on my Instagram channel, which I will link below. I have a few followers, but I thought it was something I could do. I take a lot of photos, I write, sometimes professionally, but mostly just for myself, so I thought my photo essays might get some response and help in some way. Friends of mine convinced me to self-publish these days as photos essays on Amazon KDP. I started with 35 days as a cutoff point so the books themselves would not be too long nor too straining. I had hoped I would only publish 1 volume. Now I've already published 2, and the 3rd is with my editor, who is my daughter, luckily, and I'm afraid that there will also be a 4th. You have already shown your support for the cause of Ukraine, and I thought I would send you the 2 published volumes, 35 Days of War, a visual diary, 35 More Days of War, a visual diary. I realize that you have many things on your plate, but I hope you get the time to read and pursue them a bit. I'm sure that you will enjoy them. Take care and enjoy the Texas summer. Yours, Lee." Lee, my friend, I'm afraid that I'm about done enjoying the Texas summer this year, so it started really early here. Like in May, it was already triple digits. It's rained like once all summer, and now it's hot again, and it's September, so it's like summer's still here. Why? It needs to move on. Thanks for these 2 zines. They really look good, and for a first 2 efforts in publishing, I think you're doing an excellent job. My best advice on something like this is to keep doing it. Do it more and more. You're going to get better and better as you go. I think this is an awesome cause. I will put a link in the show description for anybody who wants to get some cool zines and donate to a great cause. There's a lot of really cool stuff in here. I like the idea of combining text and images. The only thing I would say is that your format, although it is very good, I would be very careful of one thing in here. So the format kind of goes that this is a picture of something. You see the picture and there's a description and some metaphorical information that he gives in here. But this one says, "This isn't the greatest photo." Remember, we have a little rule here at The Art of Photography. We don't apologize for photos, right? I need everyone to repeat after me. Never apologize for a photograph. Got a whole video on that, actually. But on all seriousness, I love the idea of combining the words and the images. I think you're off to an awesome start. Keep doing it. These are beautiful. So thanks for sending, Lee. Much appreciated. Next up, we've got 2 books that are rather large. They come to us from Dion. We have Japan, May 2015 and April 2018, as well as 50th birthday Uluru trip, May 2016. Dion also writes a note which reads, "Hi Ted, I've been doing photography since the mid-1990s. I used to own a lot of Minolta equipment and even an A7000 with the first A-mount lenses. It eventually became $1 a print, and a roll of 36 shots was $38 Australian just to get developed. So I wasn't working at the time. I sold it all off, something I would later regret. In 2000, I bought my first so-called digital camera with a whopping 0.3 megapixels. For the next 10 years, I used various point-and-shoot, mostly digital cameras. In 2010, while being sent to San Diego for work, I bought a Sony A350 at the airport. I was looking at Nikon, but the Sony had more megapixels at a lower price. Anyway, later I found that the A-mount glass could have fitted this camera, and that is where my regret in selling everything that I had comes from. Over the years, though, I have traveled to 7 different countries multiple times, and I keep saying that one day I should do a book on these places. Well, recently I retired from medical ground, and that means that that one day is here. These are 2 of the books that I have done. With over 1 million images to sort through, it was not easy to decide which ones to use. The process was made a lot easier, as I always kept my best images on Flickr. Just finding the originals and all the different backups was harder to do. A new NAS and better backup structure resulted from this. In the process of doing these books, I tried 4 different manufacturers and eventually settled on Vistaprint. The pages sort of look like photos, and a friend said you could cut a page out and even frame it. I hope that you enjoy these books. Regards, Dion. Dion, these are absolutely gorgeous. And since we're in the mood for unsolicited advice today, just a couple pointers that I think would take these up a notch in terms of quality. Okay, and this is actually a perfect example of what I'm talking about when I say I really need to be face-to-face with the person, because I want to know what the intention of these books was. So if the intention of these books is just to have one-offs that you can collect and be able to remember things and maybe show to some friends, then maybe this is what you want to do. But one thing I have noticed, and I see this a lot in books that are sent to me, it's just something that I want to make that's just a little small point that could make this a little better even. But everything is labeled below the photograph, first of all. And the other thing is the photograph uses as much of the page as physically possible. Now, I understand that you want your photographs to look good, you want them to sing, you want them to reach out. Letting them breathe a little bit, there's a lot to be said for that, rather than trying to maximize all of the real estate on any given page. Just let it breathe a little bit. And the other thing is, I think some of the technical details, if you're trying to make this more of a work of art type of book, I think you could probably maybe put those in the back or find another way to present them. You've got some really strong work in here, and the printing quality is amazing on these. I think the layout is very strong, but I think that is, if I were to make just a little suggestion on that, let things breathe a little bit. It's okay to have a white border around an image, and then watch out for too much text and stuff that tends to distract the viewer from looking at the image, because the images are really gorgeous and you want to see them and not be distracted by what each one of them is about and what the date was and all that. Anyway, just a little piece of advice. All I'm saying, I see that a lot in books, and actually, I mean, I've seen it too with people who are kind of pro photographers who do their first book, and everything is crammed in there and it's full bleed images on every page. Things get lost in the gutter just because they've never made a book before. There's nothing wrong with that, and that's of course how we learn and how we move forward. But the best piece of advice that I could give to anyone that's putting a book together is go to the bookstore. Even if you go to the used bookstore or shop on Amazon, buy used stuff, I don't know. Find an inexpensive way to look at artists whose work you admire and go look at the layout of their books, see what they're doing, see what works. That's an excellent way to learn. Anyway, Dion, these are beautiful books. I love the color renditions in here, the glossy pages, everything else looks amazing. And thus ends another successful mail time. Guys, let me know what you think about just little minor critiques. It's just something that I don't know, I'm feeling spicy today. I just had to stick those in there. I don't normally do that. And one of the main reasons I don't is because people have been nice enough to send stuff in to me, and I don't want to risk saying something that they will take in the wrong context and be insulted. I'm just really careful about all that. I know there's some YouTubers who love to get rapid fire reviews and just tear the bejesus out of everything, and that is really not me. It never has been and probably never will be, but I would love to know what you guys think on that. Drop me a comment below. I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, later.